We are waiting with
Okay,
bated
the
breath.
floor is mine.
With bated breath.
Okay, ready to go. Thank you, Rabbi Leiter, again for having me. This will be the third and final class about do you have to kasher your teeth for Pesach? Do you have to go boil a kettle of water and then pour it in your mouth?
With salt.
If you want, if it makes it better. Probably make it worse. But so I hope to do today is to review some of the things we talked about, and then introduce one more factor, and then issue what not a final ruling, but what the major poskim say of nowadays, and then anyone who has any practical question can ask Rabbi Leiter. So that's the deal. I just read, if anyone's interested in like these halachic type of discussions, there's this great series of books that my friend wrote, Rabbi Nate Miller. He, every Saturday night, Rav Heinemann, the head of the Star K, he gives a shiur to the guys in Eretz Yisrael about like current halachic topics. So my friend wrote them all up. They're all on Amazon. They're like $5 or $6 a piece, and they go by topics. He's probably got like 24 of them. So if you just go into Amazon and write Rav Heinemann, you'll get like a lot of these things will come up. So he's got one on Pesach. He's got 3 on Kashrus. He's got on like every topic, like very interesting halachic discussions. It's all in English. But one of the things I was reading it on Friday. One of the things he says is that why do we give smicha to people for learning Yordei? This is like the kind of stuff that people get smicha for, the kashrus type of topic. So why that? Why not give smicha for like the laws of brachos? Right? You make brachos more often than when you have a halachic question for kashrus. Right? We just had a bracha. So he said, why do we do that? Why do we give smicha for kashrus questions? So he says when you have a kashrus question, as you're seeing in the shiur, there's like 15 different factors you have to take in. This happened, that happened, that happened. You have to look around. You have to know the whole thing to be able to determine a halachic question. You have to be careful you ask. But if you just want to know like what the bracha on a banana is, that you can just look up. So he says even though that Rav Heinemann says that even though kashrus questions are less common, they're more complex and they have many more factors. So that's why that's why they test for smicha. They test for kashrus questions. Okay, so let's just go over a few of the things that we talked about before. So we have a few questions here. One is, do we have to kasher our teeth? Now, one is, do we have to kasher braces? One is, do we have to kasher dentures, teeth that can be removed? And then, what about crowns? If you have crowns or if you have fillings, what are fillings made of? I don't even know. They're metal? I don't know. Silver? Silver?
Used to be.
So all those things you have to kasher now. Why is that even a question? Just don't eat chametz on Pesach and you're fine. So it's the same reason why we have to kasher our dishes. Why do we have to kasher our dishes before Pesach? Because the Torah, it's a debate if it's the Torah or the rabbis who did this, but we paskin that it's the Torah, that's the Torah law, that the taste of a food goes into the dish. So if I have a pot that I use the entire year to make chametz, to make macaroni and cheese, and then I use it over Pesach to make matzah brai, the taste of the chametz will go into the pot, and then when I cook the matzah brai in that pot, the taste of the chametz will go into the matzah brai, and I am eating chametz on Pesach. And I'm violating the Torah prohibition of eating chametz on Pesach. So we ask, just like the taste of chametz goes into the pot, maybe the taste of chametz, right now we're eating bialis, so maybe the taste of the bialis is going into my mouth. And now when I eat on Pesach, when I'm having the matzah, the first Seder, and I have all in mind to fulfill the mitzvah of eating the matzah, and I'm connecting to Hashem and the freedom of leaving Egypt, and I feel spiritually elevated, wait a minute, you're eating chametz. Because maybe the taste of the bagels or whatever you ate the day before is going into your teeth, and now it's going into the matzah.
But if I use my hand to eat pizza all year, and macaroni and bread,
right
now on Pesach, I got the kasher in my hand.
Maybe. A similar point, so that was one of the things that we talked about. A similar point was brought up by the Stipler. The Stipler said, he asked it a little differently. He says, when I eat a piece of pizza, he didn't say pizza, he says, I think toast, or a piece of meat, I put my finger on it. So, you're not allowed to eat people, right? You can't eat somebody. So maybe the taste of me went into the pizza, and now I'm eating the pizza, I'm really eating me. I'm not allowed to do that. Or somebody else is eating it. Can't eat, right? If you hand me a piece of pizza inside, then I'll be eating you. I'm not allowed to eat you. It's a Torah prohibition, debate of Israel, I think, or something else. So he writes that this is one of the answers why we don't have to kasher teeth. That he writes something that is alive when it touches something hot. Now, the general way that taste transfers. So my question about what I was saying about bagels really doesn't count. Why? Because bagels are cold. The question really mostly is only when something is hot.
Right.
Because heat is what transfers taste. That's a major thing. We'll see there's a couple other things also, but heat transfers taste. So he says, but that doesn't apply when something's alive. So when you touch a piece of pizza, since you are alive, the taste of you does not go in to the pizza, and it won't come out of the pizza. There are those that ask on the stipler. I didn't look into it, but there are those that had a question on him. But there was a case. This is actually more relevant than you think. It probably doesn't happen so much anymore. I can't imagine. Maybe if the kitchen's maybe in the former Chinese place, I'm just thinking out loud. The case was that a live chicken jumped into a pot of hot milk that was cooking. So maybe it's Basar B'Chalov, because the chicken jumped in, then jumped out. But it was alive, so maybe it could be different. So I was just thinking the old Chinese place, if like a rat jumped into the food and then jumped out. I'm just trying to think where that would come up nowadays. It could happen. It could, depending on certain kitchens, maybe more common than others. Maybe having a barbecue and then the squirrel jumps onto your grill. What would happen then? Right, all these things are these questions that could come up. Okay, so that was the thing. Tom Kaker. But let's say we're eating. What about teeth? We're good for teeth. So now the question: what about dentures, or fillings, or caps? That's not alive. That's just added to my teeth. There's no difference between the metal in my mouth versus the metal of a pot. Why should that be any different? So that's what we were talking about. So the first thing we said, I don't know the order. So what's the first question the rabbi asked you when he asked him a kashrus question? Is when was the last time you used your pot before this happened?
What
Yes.
we used to do is, my mother used to take the pots and pans and soak them in the tub with kosher salt.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's what she did.
It's nice that she tried to do something. She still had the thing, but usually what we do is that we let them wait for a day, and then we put them in boiling water. But you should ask the rabbi for guidance.
Well, it'll be boiling water with salt.
Oh yeah, boy.
Yeah.
She gave you hot baths.
No,
Actually, the best thing is to get new dishes, and that's what
I
everyone
wasn't
does
in
now.
there with her. No.
By the way, the difference between someone who learns, just like studies the books, and then someone who actually has done this. Someone asked me to kasher stuff in their house once, and what I didn't realize, do you know how long it takes to get a big vat of water to boil? It takes a long time. I didn't know that before. So I was at this guy's house for like an hour and a half. My friend warned me beforehand. Like, you should really have him boil the water before you get there. I'm like, no, it'll be fine. It takes a long time for those big vats of water
That's why
to
in
boil.
movies, when they're having a baby, the doctor says boil water.
Oh, there you go.
We had to do that because we were very poor.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
We did.
Yeah.
We had no money.
Okay. So the first thing the rabbi asks you, let's say you take your meat spoon and you stir the macaroni and cheese on the stove. He's going to ask you, when was the last time you used the meat spoon? What's the difference? Because there's something called a ben yomo and ein a ben yomo. Ben yomo means that you used that utensil within a day for something. So you use that utensil within a day for meat, then you put it in the macaroni and cheese. If there's not 60 times the volume of the spoon, then it's treif. However, if the spoon wasn't used within a day, we say that any taste that got into the spoon of meat, it's already it's called pugum. It's like messed up. It doesn't taste good anymore. So the Torah never forbade food that doesn't taste good anymore, the taste of food that doesn't taste good anymore, to go into the macaroni and cheese. So the rabbi is going to say you'll have to kasher the spoon, but you can eat the macaroni and cheese. So that's the first thing that the rabbi is going to ask you. So we said, well, maybe before Pesach, just don't eat chametz the day before Pesach, and you're good. But then we saw that the Ramah writes on Pesach we are stringent for this. So the rules, we're going to see that the rules on Pesach are much more stringent than the rest of the year. Because usually we find, because chametz we usually eat the rest of the year, so we are more stringent during Pesach because we're like chametz is something we're used to, so we might more likely to make a mistake. So we're more stringent. So this rule of ein a ben yomo, that if you didn't use something for chametz from a day before, that doesn't apply on Pesach. There's actually a debate about it, but we're stringent for it. We're stringent. So that really won't help. Now another issue we said is yad soledus, that there has to be a certain heat to transfer taste from one thing to another, a certain level of heat. We said it's between 113 degrees of Shemir Shabbos. You said Rav Heinemann told you something? Was it last week? At temperature? Where you mentioned the temperature last week, I thought? I thought so, and then Rav Moshe says 116 degrees, 106 degrees. So it could be if you're eating hot, if you're drinking hot tea, it is possible that a really hot piece of chametz food could get to that temperature. So that could be a problem. But what else did we say? We said, even though something's very hot, there's a difference. You ever see the guys, on Shabbos, they put the water in one cup and they put it in another cup, and I go, why are you wasting so many cups? Especially when you see yeshiva, when there's hundreds and hundreds of guys, you have at the end of Shabbos 50 cups piled up. It's really I think I don't know if it's still the same, but Phil Goldberg, the head of the kitchen there, said they spend $50 on just cups a day in yeshiva. It's just cups. So why are you wasting so many cups? So the reason is because there's different levels of cups, of vessels called kalim. A kli rishon, that's a primary kli. That's where you cook. That's a pot that was used to be cooked on the stove. A kli sheni, a secondary cup, is you take it from that pot that was cooked on the stove and you put it into something else. And the kli shlishi would be the third one. So there's all these halachic differences between the primary cup, the second cup, and the third cup. We say that the second cup or the second vessel, since its walls are cold, that'll cool down over a long period of time. That'll cool down the contents of the cup. So it doesn't cook. Regular food, it doesn't cook. There's a million halachas with this. Any practical questions, make sure to ask Rabbi Leiter. But we'll say here, usually when we have food, when we eat, we don't drink or eat out of a primary, of a kli rishon, out of a vessel that was cooked on the stove, right? Usually, I don't even think trying to think if I've ever done it, because I eat a lot of different things. And I can't even think of taking something off the stove and just going, right? I don't think people do that. So most of the time we're eating, even hot tea, we're taking from a kli sheni, or right? This was if I had tea, usually even during the week, I'm taking it from the urn. The urn will be a kli rishon, and this will be a kli sheni, a secondary kli. By the time it gets to my mouth is already a kli shlishi. That's the third level. That is not going to affect not going to transfer any taste of whatever I'm eating into my mouth. So maybe we're good because of that.
What about people that heat coffee and soup in the microwave?
So that would then make it a kli rishon. That was actually one of the discussions to bring back the Chinese place. A lot of people wanted to say that you didn't have to kasher anything. There's a whole you have to kasher the dishes, you don't have to kasher, because by the time you get the food home from the Chinese place and you put it on your plate, the Chinese place cooking there was a kli rishon. Then they put it in little boxes. That's a kli sheni. By the time it got on your plate, it was a kli shlishi. Maybe you don't have to kasher anything. And someone said, well, yeah, but a lot of people heat it up in the microwave. Once you put it in the microwave, you're cooking it. That becomes cooking. So that becomes a kli rishon again. So then you're in trouble. Oh, you're making a good point. So if I heat up my tea in the microwave, now that becomes a kli rishon. Right. So that would make it worse. There will be iroi kli rishon in my mouth. Is there any type of chametz? Oh, maybe.
Yeah, you take those. Years ago, I used to do it, but
the noodles.
Those
cup of noodles.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. If you would. So usually people pour hot water in, but you're saying right. If you would put that thing, right, the water in the cup of noodles in the microwave or whatever, right, then that would be a kli rishon. That would be a problem.
You know what we're doing tonight?
What?
We're putting the oven on high, and we're going to burn anything that's inside. Any comments? We burn.
Does it have self-cleaning?
Yeah.
Self-cleaning is the best if you have self-cleaning.
Yeah, and we let it stays for hours and hours until it's done.
Someone asked Rav Heidemann, he said, if you have a self-cleaning oven and after you turn it on you still find chametz there, what should you do? So he said, your oven's broken. He has a lot of good lines like that. He said, what do you do if you trape up your washing machine? Not washing machine, your dishwasher. He said, you can blowtorch it, but it's going to ruin it. Anyway, okay, so besides Dr. Pinel's question, it's a good point. If anyone does that, right, that would be more problematic. But there's another problem they bring up. What we're saying about this kli rishon, kli shenis, I'm just going to talk about this, then one more factor, and then we'll get to what the poskim say. What about a davar gush? A davar gush is a solid food. We are more stringent by solid food. If you have a hot piece of kugel, you'll see, you're at a kiddush, you have a hot piece of kugel, and you have a pickle, a classic case. People will not, on Shabbos, take their pickle and put it on the hot piece of kugel, because apparently it tastes very good. People in Eretz Yisrael, Yerushalmi kugel, yeah, they love doing that. I was never into it, but a lot of people like that. So they won't do it. Why won't they do that? Because by the time the kugel gets to your plate, usually it was cooked in the oven, then they put it on a serving plate, and then it's on your plate. It's like 3 steps removed. Who cares already? So the reason is because it's a solid food, it doesn't have walls to cool it down. So there's a stringency to treat it like a kli rishon, a primary vessel, the kugel. And then the kugel is going to be cooking your pickle, and then you're cooking on Shabbos, and it's a big problem. So people don't do that. So that would be something else. So even though we're saying usually 99.9% of the time when we're drinking from a kli sheni or a kli shlishi or whatever, What about a davar gush? If I take that hot piece of pizza and I put it in my mouth, that's a solid food that should have the status of a kli rishon, so the taste of the pizza should be in my mouth on Pesach. So that's another issue. Now, one more issue. There's something called a davar charif. There are a couple of cases where taste could transfer without heat, and that is with a sharp food. If I'm cutting an onion is considered very sharp. Oh, there you go. So now, if you would take that, let's say that was a fleshig knife, and you cut an onion, and now you want to take that onion and you should not put the onion into a milchig dish, because the onion is sharp and it absorbed, even though there's no heat there, but since it's sharp, it has a spicy, whatever you want to call it, flavor. The taste of the knife, which was milchig, went into the onion. And not only that, an onion is worse, because an onion has a power, something that's sharp. We also ignore those rules of ben yomo ena ben yomo. We are stringent that the taste of the onion is so sharp that it will actually improve whatever taste was in the knife. So even if you use the knife a month ago for meat, even though if that knife would go into a hot pot of macaroni and cheese, it wouldn't do anything to macaroni and cheese. But we're worried that when you use the knife, there's opinions that hold that will actually improve the taste in the knife of the meat. It will reinvigorate the meat taste, and it's like you just cut the meat a minute ago. So if you then put the onion into the milchig dish, then you have a problem. So now, if we have any,
Pays to have a par of knives.
Yeah,
It's
people
very important to do that.
people
If you
have
don't
par
it,
of
you should do
knives, people have par of pots.
it. It saves a lot of issues, a lot of problems.
Should stop using hot sauce on everything.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
okay, so we have this. So what are we worried about now? Right. So if I have something, I don't know, spicy type of chametz. I don't know. So many. I didn't really think of spicy chametz. I can't remember having spicy chametz recently. But if you have something that's hot, forget that. If you eat the horseradish at the Seder. If you have, let's say you have taste of chametz in your mouth, in the caps or the dentures, when you have that horseradish, which is very hot, that'll take out all of the chametz taste into the horseradish, and then you swallow it, boom, chametz on Pesach, you're done for. Okay, so what do we do? So let's see all of the opinions. I'll start with the most stringent, and then I'll get more and more lenient. Most stringent is, I didn't look this up, but I saw quoted in an article that the Tzemach Tzedek had several pairs of dentures. He would have dentures for meat, dentures for milk, and then he had different dentures for Pesach. So that's one thing. Now, what does Rosh Shlomo Zalman say? So he has a lot of leniencies. One thing is that we said that anything that's absorbed in the teeth or in the dentures, we said it's Eino Ben Yomo. Let's say you don't eat a day before Pesach. So he said everything there is Eino Ben Yomo. Right, that means it hasn't been used within 24 hours, and we're very lenient with that. But we said Pesach. Pesach were more stringent. So he says stuff in the teeth is actually worse than nosin tam gam. It's worse than just like not great taste anymore. It's disgusting. I don't know if you ever put a dental floss between your last two teeth and then smell it. It's disgusting. It's gross. So he says any taste that's in the teeth or in the dentures, it's so disgusting. There's nothing that could be done to it to reinvigorate. But and now what about a davar gush? Let's say I just ate the day before. I had a hot piece of pizza the day before Pesach. That was my last hurrah before Pesach. I got nice hot slice of pizza. So he cites there's a prima gunam that says this whole thing with a davar gush of a solid food that we're very stringent. He says first of all that's a whole debate about, and he says it's a stringency. And there's a prima gunam that says when you have a loss, you don't have to be stringent like that. And he says not enjoying Yontiv by worrying, I can't eat this, I can't eat that, I can't eat this. That would ruin your Simchas Yontiv. That would ruin your Yontiv experience. And therefore, we don't have to worry about it on Pesach. We don't have to worry about that stringency of the hot food. But he does say that if you want, he doesn't say you have to do this. He says there are people that are careful the day before Pesach not to eat hot chametz. And he also says he says if you want, you can rinse out your mouth with hot water before Pesach. So that you could do. And this also this Menias Simchas Yontiv, taken away from the happiness of Yontiv, would apply also by spicy hot foods as well, because there's also the debate which type of hot foods. By hot I mean spicy. I don't mean hot. I mean like sharp. Some say it's only a radish, so even an onion wouldn't be sharp enough. It has to be like super sharp. So usually we're stringent with all these things. And then, if there's a pressing circumstances, we'll rely on the lenient opinion. So, Simchas Yontiv is a lenient opinion. So, Rosh Shlomo Zalman says, really, you're fine. if you want, you don't eat hot chametz the day before Pesach, and you can rinse your mouth out with hot water if you want. Now, there's a Shevet Levi. He says you don't have to do anything. He said usually, he says mostly we eat from a klisheni. Oh, it could we drink from a secondary vessel. Now, as far as your question, I think when we kasher things, we go after the majority of use. So I'm just thinking now that 99.99% of the times you're not drinking from a kli rishon. So it could be you just discount that time. He says also, he brings Sam Sefer says the same thing, that with a davar gush, a hot food, you can be lenient when you need to. And he says if you want to kosher your dentures, he said the issue might be, Rabbi Leiter mentioned that you might ruin them, right? If you put them in a boiling hot water, right, you might ruin them, right? You can't take out your caps and your fillings and all that, but the dentures maybe just be stringent, take them out and put them in a boiling hot water. So he says, right, if that's going to ruin it, you can, if you want, he says you could just put it in get a hot thing of water and a klisheni, so it's much cooler, and then you could dump them in if you want. But again, that just sounds like if you want to be stringent, but really you don't have to do anything. So that was the most lenient thing. But I still had a question. I didn't work this out. So if anyone wants to offer a suggestion. So Pesach, we're good. We're saying, practically you should ask Rabbi Leiter what you should do if you have dentures or if you have things. But we have, most poskim are lenient. It could be even that Hasidic rabbi who had many dentures just wanted to be stringent. People are very, very stringent on Pesach. Like very stringent. They go way above. We love Pesach, so we go like beyond the letter of the law very often. But you don't do it. I was still wondering, let's say you want to be, what about let's say if you have a sharp, what if you eat a sharp, spicy piece of meat, right? Well, forget Pesach, what about meat and milk? If I have a sharp, spicy piece of meat, will that take out the...
You can't have meat and milk.
No, but I'm saying, you can, if you have milk first, you just wash out your mouth, you have a cookie or a cracker, and then you can have meat right after.
Okay.
Right, so let's say I had macaroni and cheese, but then right after, I have a sharp
A burrito.
Right, something like that. Why doesn't that take out the, hot milchigs and put it into the fleishiks? So I haven't worked that out yet.
Did you say there's some almonds flour in the mouth? Didn't you say that in regard to charit too?
So right, but he was applying it to Pesach because Manias Simchas Yantiv.
I'll get it.
He only said that svara of a mouth is...
Right, by Pesach.
Said that in conjunction with Simchas Yantiv?
Right,
Yeah?
right,
Oh.
yeah. Or Hefsed Meruba. So does it Hefsed Meruba for me to not have a burrito? That's I didn't really work that out yet. Interesting, something to think about maybe. Okay, the end.
Yes, you call.